Welcome to Defense Briefing. The content of the briefing includes Asia stocks set for losses as U.S. volatility rises, markets wrap. Israelis and Gazans flee amid clashes and warnings of wider regional war. Why shippers hate recessions, but love crises. Israel latest, more aid trickles into Gaza as death toll rises. Israel's dilemma, how hostage talks could bog down military plans. Asia stocks set for losses as U.S. volatility rises, markets wrap. Bloomberg. Israelis and Gazans flee amid clashes and warnings of wider regional war. New York Times. Fears are growing of a widening regional conflict as Israeli forces mass along the border with Gaza, and clashes escalate on Israel's northern border with Lebanon. The United States has ordered some diplomatic staff to leave Iraq, and Israel has dropped leaflets telling Palestinians to leave northern Gaza. Lebanese civilians have also fled their villages for fear of Israeli shelling. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned that if Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed militia that controls southern Lebanon, joins the conflict, there would be devastating consequences. Meanwhile, the Biden administration has urged Israel to delay a ground invasion of Gaza in order to allow more humanitarian aid to reach Palestinians and to buy more time for negotiations to release over 200 hostages held by Hamas. Why shippers hate recessions, but love crises. Bloomberg. Global shipping rates, particularly for the transportation of raw commodities like iron ore and crude oil, have experienced a sudden spike. However, this is likely to be a short-term shock rather than a sustained recovery for the industry, as historical data suggests. Factors such as droughts, conflicts, and localized crises have boosted demand for transportation in recent weeks, but the global economy and outlook for next year have not greatly improved. The increase in shipping rates is primarily due to short-term shocks rather than long-term economic indicators. Israel latest, more aid trickles into Gaza as death toll rises. Yahoo! The timing of any ground invasion into Gaza remained uncertain on Sunday. Israel's support for diplomatic efforts to release hostages may delay or alter the plans, people familiar said, even as the Israeli military steps up air raids in preparation for the next phase of the war. Israel's dilemma, how hostage talks could bog down military plans. Wall Street Journal. Israel faces a difficult decision as it contemplates the next stage of its war in Gaza. If it continues to engage in indirect negotiations with Hamas regarding the fate of over 200 hostages, Israel risks becoming bogged down in talks with a group it has promised to destroy. However, if it proceeds with a ground operation before the hostages are released, Israel risks higher casualties and increased international pressure to limit its operations. Furthermore, a large-scale invasion of Gaza could result in a second front if Hezbollah attacks while Israel is engaged against Hamas. The risk posed by Hezbollah is so great that some have suggested Israel should launch a preemptive strike across its northern border to destroy some of Hezbollah's missile capabilities. Israel has called up roughly 360,000 military reservists in preparation for the next phase in Gaza. The ground offensive will focus on targeting Hamas fighters and leaders who use tunnels and fortified bunkers to evade Israeli forces. Israel is facing pressure from the U.S. and other countries to delay the invasion to allow negotiations to continue for the release of the hostages and to allow humanitarian aid to enter Gaza. Ukraine Business Roundup Issue 6. Yahoo! Rostislav Sherma, the deputy head of the Ukrainian president's office, has claimed that no foreign investor has ever encountered corruption while doing business in Ukraine. This statement was met with disbelief and derision from some Ukrainian businesspeople attending the Kyiv International Economic Forum. Ukrainian biotech CEO Konstantin Yefimenko responded by suggesting that it was time to stop discussing foreign business and instead focus on the problems faced by Ukrainian companies. He identified several concerns, including the activities of state agencies, the issue of war insurance, and the prohibition on dividend payments. He also highlighted the need to protect Ukrainian assets from Ukraine's faulty judicial system. Monday briefing, Israel orders more evacuations. New York Times. Israel has expanded its state-funded evacuation plan to 14 more villages as fighting with Hezbollah in Lebanon intensifies. The move comes as the Pentagon sends an anti-missile battery and battalions of the Patriot ground-based air defense system to the Middle East. Israeli forces are also massing along the border with Gaza ahead of an expected ground invasion, with Yoav Gallant, the country's defense minister, predicting that Hamas will no longer exist by the end of the conflict. Violence has also been surging in the Israeli-occupied West Bank, with 2 people reportedly killed in a strike by the Israeli military. Humanitarian groups and the UN have warned that the first shipment of aid that arrived in Gaza on January 8 was only a fraction of what was needed, and the UN said that Israeli bombardment in the territory has continued almost unabated. In contrast, no new fatalities were reported in Israel. Threat of Russian UAV attacks in Kiev and Kiev Oblast, air defense network activated. Yahoo! An air raid warning was issued in Kiev and Kiev Oblast on the evening of October 22 due to the threat of Russian drone attacks. The warning was issued at around 21:03 Kiev time and was later extended to the capital city. An air defense network was activated on the outskirts of Kiev and the all-clear was given at 23:01 in Kiev and 23:06 in Kiev Oblast. The Russian forces had launched 2 assault UAVs from the northern direction on 21 to 22 October, which Ukraine's Air Force was not able to shoot down. US says it will retaliate if American forces are attacked in Middle East. Al Jazeera. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has warned that the US is prepared to retaliate if American troops are targeted in the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas. Blinken stated that the war is likely to escalate through the involvement of Iranian proxies and that the Biden administration is ready to respond if US personnel are attacked. He also revealed that Israel does not want to govern the Gaza Strip after the conflict ends. However, he stressed that there can be no return to the previous status quo and that a solution must be found to prevent future attacks from Hamas. The Israeli army has been bombing Hamas targets in Gaza since October 7, and it is unclear what Israel's plan is for the post-offensive period. US President Joe Biden has spoken with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to discuss the situation and also had a call with Pope Francis. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Hex from the 6 Degrees World, here to bring you the latest news from around the globe. Today, we have stories ranging from the financial markets to the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East. So, let's dive right in. In the financial world, Asian stocks are expected to take a hit as volatility rises in the US. Investors are seeking safe havens amidst geopolitical tensions, leading to a surge in gold prices and a drop in treasury yields. Moving on to the Middle East, fears of a widening regional conflict are growing as Israeli forces mass along the border with Gaza and clashes escalate with Lebanon. The United States has ordered some diplomatic staff to leave Iraq, and Israel has urged Hamas to release over 200 hostages before proceeding with a ground invasion. Meanwhile, global shipping rates have spiked due to short-term shocks, but experts believe this is not a sustained recovery for the industry. In Ukraine, a deputy head of the president's office claimed that no foreign investor has encountered corruption, sparking disbelief and derision from businesspeople. And in workplaces around the world, the Israel-Hamas conflict has spilled over, causing divisions and making it difficult to find a unifying message. Lastly, the US has warned that it will retaliate if American forces are attacked in the Middle East. Secretary of State Antony Blinken stated that the war is likely to escalate, and Israel does not want to govern Gaza after the conflict ends. President Joe Biden has been in contact with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Pope Francis to discuss the situation. Now, let's take a deeper look at these stories. The financial markets are feeling the impact of geopolitical tensions, with investors seeking safer options. While the spike in shipping rates may seem like a positive sign, it is likely temporary and not a true indicator of economic recovery. In the Middle East, the situation is growing more precarious, with the potential for a wider conflict involving Hezbollah. Israel faces a difficult decision as it balances negotiations for the release of hostages, the need for humanitarian aid, and the risk of a ground invasion. In workplaces, the Israel-Hamas conflict has become a divisive topic, with CEOs and employees expressing their views. The corporate response has faced criticism from both Islamic rights advocates and Jewish groups, highlighting the challenging nature of finding a unifying message. And finally, the US is closely monitoring the situation in the Middle East and stands ready to retaliate if its personnel are attacked. So, there you have it, a snapshot of the latest news from around the world. As always, I encourage you to share your thoughts and join the discussion. What are your thoughts on the financial markets and the ongoing conflicts? Do you have any questions for me, Dr. Hex? Let's hear what you have to say. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.